problematic, I guess, is the conflation of what strike me as kind of quite reasonable ideas in men's rights in terms of moving towards cold, hard and fast, exacting gender equality, if that's the right phrase, and the extreme, you mentioned Mgtow, incels, confusion with kind of alt-right type of, kind of very easy targets, I suppose, for the media that would strike most people as being a bit crazy, a bit conspiracy theorist, etc., etc. This, I have to say, is more of an American phenomenon than it is in the UK or Europe.
Right.
Do you think confusing those two is problematic?
Yes, and I think it's intentional.
Right.
I think the people in the media, I mean, your peers, for years now, have sought to, take incidents like Elliot Rodger, who was not a men's rights advocate at all, didn't like men's rights advocates, no evidence he ever belonged to my websites, to any of the men's rights forums that are out there. He was a psychopath who murdered a bunch of people, and the feminist-inspired media turned that into he's an MRA, and their latest trend is to lump everybody into the incel group. So everybody, if I want to help a guy figure out how to see his children after 3 years of having them alienated, then I'm an incel. And that is going on full scale right now in the media. It's absolutely, it's what we've come to expect. Sorry, but your profession has gone down the toilet, dude.
Indeed. Do you think there is anything the sort of men's rights movement, if we can call it a movement, can do to kind of put some clear water between itself and its ideas and the extremism with which it's often characterized?
Probably not in the minds of most of the general public, who are basically, in my opinion anyway, are kind of lemming-like. They consume whatever the media feeds them, and that becomes their belief system. We see that happening in a lot of different ways. But where it matters, which is in where the direct work with men, our meetings regarding men, our group processes, there's clear water between that stuff there. Is as much as is needed for us to get our jobs done, and it works perfectly well. I mean, to be brutally blunt about it, nobody in our groups gives a damn about what the general public believes. The general public's beliefs about men and women are the problem to begin with.
Indeed. Why do you think, I mean, aside from the media failings, why do you think there is a seeming reluctance to address the disparities in rights between men and women? And I was just talking to, about an hour or two ago, I was talking to Mike Buchanan, who I think you've spoken to recently, because he knew I was going to be chatting to you later on.
Right.
And obviously he gave me a kind of a very precise list about preferential recruitment, domestic violence, reproductive rights, all sorts of very specific issues. Why is there a reluctance to address those, a seeming reluctance, shall we say, to address those very specific issues, either in law or by enforcing laws which already exist, quite possibly, depending on the country, and obviously?
Well, it's largely, I think, one of the effects of gynocentrism on a social level is there is, if you're familiar with the concept of pathogen disgust, nobody wants basically to help men. You can't raise it. You can't even go out as a politician without serious risk. I mean, it's less so, I think, in the UK, but there's no American senator or House member that would stand up and say, we need to do something about false accusations against men, or we need to do something about parental alienation, is because it would be political suicide. Nobody's going to do that. Nobody's going to touch it for anything in the world, because our society treats men who are wounded, men who are suffering as defective, and wants to quickly cast them aside. They don't represent anything positive to contribute to society. Broken men are hated
Right.
out of pathogen disgust.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter I'm sure Mike, and he's very good about statistics. I'm sure he could, and I know for a fact, he knows this subject inside and out. But there's not a single matter that he recited to you, I guarantee you, that you could go out into the media and say, we need to bring awareness to this in any way without enormous backlash from both sides of the political spectrum in the United States.
In the US, yeah. Specific. Do you think the US is a special case, or is your feeling that that's kind of broadly the case?
Well, I think it's, they've talked about getting rid of women's prisons in the UK. There is this sort of destructive, corrupting gynocentrism in every society on the earth, East and West.
Yes.
You see, there's a huge men's rights movement in India because of what's going on there in the family courts and dowry laws. But again, across the board, the moment you try to talk about any of these things, the first accusation is woman hate. That if you want to solve men's problems, you must hate women. Feminists push that narrative, so do conservatives. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Well, why is that? I suppose it comes back to this gynocentrist idea. But so, why is that? Why would it be? I mean, if you take some of the issues that Mike brought up, for example, domestic violence or parental alienation, for example, are you really saying that if a politician in the States or elsewhere said, we need to tackle the fact that there is domestic violence against men, that would be political suicide for them? I mean,
have you ever seen one do it?
Nope.
There's your answer.
Why?
If there was any political advantage in helping men, politicians would be helping men. There's no political advantage in helping any men. There is abundance of political advantage in infantilizing women, casting them as a victim class, and throwing tons of money at their problems, real or imagined.
Okay, so does the politicians not do this because it would screw their careers, or are politicians not doing this because there's simply nothing in it, and they seem like two different reasons?
I think it's because they know it would screw their careers. Rick Scott is a great example. He was a governor of Florida, a conservative, a Republican. A bill came up and passed through the Florida legislature to end lifetime alimony for men. The assumption being that if a woman could get a job, she could take care of herself, a radical idea like that. He vetoed it.
Yeah.
Because he was afraid of what women voters would do.
Yeah.
And one of the things we have to be able to talk about honestly, Josh, is that the woman's vote is predicated on self-interest more than social interest.
Yeah, I suppose the problem there is that they're often considered, or at the moment anyway, that they're considered the same thing. Do you not agree with that? That the women's interest is a social interest?
Yes, absolutely. And something, to a great degree with many women's issues, that's true. Yeah. But it also happens to be true that men's issues are social interest of value. They're very important. We've got men right now that are falling out of education left and right, and we're already hearing the panicked cries of women saying, "Where are all the good earning men?"
Yeah. How do you answer the accusation, not put to you personally, but the way many people might think that the men's movement is anti-women, as you just framed it from a political standpoint? How do you kind of counter that by saying it's not anti-women? How do you get around that negative perception is what I'm trying to get to.
Well, I don't think you do.
Right.
I just don't think it's possible.
Really?
It is too easy to sell women as victims. And of course, our codes for men and masculinity, the ones that you pointed to in your article, mandate that men don't talk about their problems.
Yeah.
And when they start doing that, they're seen as defective and rejected.
Yeah.
So I just don't see a way to get around that. The only thing that we can do for men, in my opinion, this is what all my work boils down to, is for the men who can wrap their heads around the idea that they're actually human beings and that their problems deserve attention and that their gendered problems deserve attention, is going to be through a subculture of men who can embrace that. 90% of society just can't wrap their heads around helping men with problems, because men are supposed to help themselves so that they can turn around and help others. And if they're not doing that, they're worthless. This is what we condition men to be, and then we shame them for being conditioned the way they are.
So it's a bit of a catch-22.
Absolutely. It's not going anywhere with that. That's why, I try to tell people all the time that ask me these questions, there's never going to be a men's rights victory parade in Washington, D.C. Nothing like that is going to happen. We're never going to mainstream.